Okay, here's part number 2. You will notice that the title of this class is Argumentation Through Literature, and we haven't talked a lot about the argumentation part, so I want to kind of bring us up to speed on that, because that's a big part of the class. The first essay, the thing analyzing the Duncan essay, it asks you to take up a position. It asks you to say the theme of this piece is blah, 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 whatever you thought the theme was, and then to defend your statement, to prove your statement is reasonable in the process of your essay. Okay? That's the argumentation part of this class. Every essay you write is argumentation, where you take up in your thesis statement a position. The theme is blah, blah, blah. The most important device that this writer uses is setting, character. All the stuff you're going to learn, you're going to take up a position and make an assertion and then apply that to the material of your choice. That's what you're going to be doing this week. And it is mostly what's called inductive reasoning. So I'm going to suggest, if you not quite clear on that, read chapter 3 in McMahon. It explains the way this all works, and it will perhaps, if you're not quite clear, it'll help you focus that up. Most of you did quite fine on the Duncan essay. Some of you were struggling with trying to find your feet, so maybe you need to go read chapter 3. And again, I'll leave you to do that on your own. But remember, you're going to take up a position, a clear statement in your thesis, and then you're going to defend or argue for your position in the body of your essay. You're going to show a reasonable reader why your position is a reasonable one. The reader doesn't have to agree with you. The reader simply has to be able to see that your position is reasonable. Again, I always tell my students when I teach argumentation, look at what the politicians are doing and then don't do that. That's a good place to start. Politicians don't argue. They don't persuade. They're just children fighting over the sandbox in the play yard. But let me give you a couple of suggestions, noticing from the Duncan piece that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. A couple of really sophisticated ideas came up in your essays, and one of them was about how the timeline is kind of convoluted and delayed, and that could match how the resolution of the riddle is delayed, how it takes 4 years for the writer to solve this problem. And so the timeline, the way it does this, can possibly match that. So one could say the theme of this is that it takes a while to solve a riddle, and one of the defense points, or one of the argumentation points in the body of the paper, could be that the timeline mirrors that image, mirrors that process, and it's done deliberately that way so as to mirror and reinforce the main point that it takes time to solve a riddle like this. So that's the idea. Take up a position, and again, I gave you specifically what I was asking you to write about, theme, in this material, which you read about in chapter 1 or 2, and then to make the statement, the theme of Duncan's piece is whatever you thought it was, and then to make the case for your belief. There's a famous philosopher who said, always be ready to give reasons for the truth that is in you. Good advice here. Take up a position, prove it using evidence from the text. One of the things that I noticed, and I kind of expected it, was for the essays that didn't do so well, and this is what you want to avoid on the next one, don't give paragraph after paragraph of plot summary. If you're retelling the story, instead of dealing with making your own ideas reasonable, you're going in the wrong direction. What you want to do in a short essay like this for your reader is to assume the reader hasn't read the story, so you give them a one-paragraph summary of the plot. You have your introduction, you have your thesis in which you state your belief, then you give them a one-paragraph summary, and then you get on with proving what you've asserted in your thesis. Excessive plot summary deprives you of the ability to make your ideas reasonable, and so when the reader gets to the end of a plot summary, all they know is how the plot goes. They don't know how you're thinking, they don't understand your thoughts, and you haven't proven anything. This is a little bit of a hard point to grasp, but you folks are smart enough. If you read to the end of your essay and you haven't done anything but tell the story over again, you haven't done anything, and more importantly, you haven't learned how to argue for your point. It's a very common thing, and I'm sorry that we teach critical thinking in the lower grades. A lot of time it's a book report. You simply read the book and you regurgitate the plot, which is supposed to convince the teacher that you've actually read the book. This is not that kind of an essay. This is not a book report. This is using the book or the essay, Duncan's essay for instance, it's using the primary material to make an argument about how the primary material works and then prove that your ideas make sense. That's harder than plot summary, but it's infinitely more rewarding than plot summary. So I did notice an awful lot of plot summary. So force yourself to a one-paragraph summary of the story, and then force yourself to deal with your own ideas and how those ideas do or do not make sense, and if they don't make sense, then make them make sense by using the evidence from the text. It's like a lawyer makes an argument in court. You know, the lawyer makes assertion, this person is guilty or this person is not guilty, and then you assemble your case, your proofs, which are then presented to make one case stronger than the other. So again, I graded these first essays, your Duncan essays, I graded them fairly easily because you're still getting your feet wet and figuring out how things are going to work. But remember, this is an argumentation class, or a persuasion class. So just to read something and then say, oh, wasn't that lovely, and here's how lovely it was, that's not persuasion. You know, that's aesthetics, which is fine, but that's not the primary purpose of this class. The primary purpose of this class is to argue or persuade. And an argument is a specific kind of rhetorical stance. Remember, what politicians are doing is not arguing. We call it arguing, but it's really fighting and bickering. We don't see much real argumentation in our culture, and that's what this class is designed to focus up. So let me see if there's anything else. Just avoid plot summary. Give me a paragraph of plot summary, retell the story in one paragraph, and then stop telling the story and tell me why your ideas make sense based on the story. And again, if you're having an issue with that, probably the best thing you can do is go back and read Chapter 3. I didn't assign Chapter 3 because, again, Chapters 1 through 5 are kind of stuff that you cover in English 1A or freshman composition wherever you took it. So I didn't assign Chapter 3. But if you're having trouble understanding the difference between argumentation and plot summary, then you should read Chapter 3. And the results will show in your essays and make your grades better. I think that's it for this week. We've got 2 or 3 other little things that we need to sort of talk about and focus up. The Modern Language Association did change all the rules over the summer. So I gave you the model last week. I just did it for you. I made it correct MLA citation under the new rules, and I simply made it and gave it to you. You're free to use that. And I appreciate the fact that some of you, in fact many of you, decided to give me an MLA works cited page, or in one case the references page. You're lucky if you're using APA. The APA hasn't changed the rules, so in a way, you're lucky. But I am going to ask you for a correctly cited, works cited page on this essay that you're writing this week. And you're going to be needing some other sources on the essay that will be due at the end of this unit. So for this first one, because we haven't had really the time to teach this stuff and it's all brand new, I'm simply going to give you a model citation, and you're free to use it. You just take my parts out and plug your parts in. But we do need to start sharpening that stuff up because it's brand new and we all have to learn it, including me. So have a wonderful week. There will be some discussions that will help you get focused. And remember, there is a short essay due at the end of this week, and you'll get an assignment sheet that specifically talks about that, although it's basically the same thing you did with the Duncan essay, except that you get to choose what you're going to talk about. And you're going to get to choose what story you're going to analyze, but it's one element and one story. In the Duncan essay, I said, read Duncan's essay and talk about theme. In the next one, the one that's due this week, you're going to read a story of your choice and talk about one element of your choice that's in the chapters in the textbook. So it's the same essay, you just get control over what element you're using and what story you're analyzing. But it's the same as what you've already done. So you might want to read through my comments in your Duncan essay, and if there are places where you can make it better, now's your chance to make it better, to improve your work. All right, so have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.